everyone, it's Heather Nichols, and today I'm going to share a colorful bouquet of flowers that is perfect for cards for Mother's Day and more. My project starts with the Picked Posies clear stamp set, coordinating dies, and the coordinating gathered greenery background stamp. The sentiments on my cards are from the Botanical Sentiments stamp set. For ink colors, I'll be using Oreo and Sugar Cube. I'll also be using olive, candy corn, and fruit punch. I'll be using several blender brushes, and for cardstock I have guava, pineapple, avocado, toffee, and sugar cube. And finally I'll be using some paper snips, foam squares, and my favorite liquid adhesive, multimedia matte. The Picked Posies set has lots of parts and pieces so you can assemble your own flowers and floral arrangements on your card. They're great for coloring, but I thought I would use a little bit of a different method to create my colorful blooms. I'm die cutting all of the different elements from the different colored cardstocks that I want the flowers to be and the greenery to be. So for example, I'm cutting the large flower from Guava cardstock, and I'll also cut it from pineapple cardstock because I'm going to paper piece that color into the center of the flower. Once I have all of the pieces cut out, I'm going to add some shadings to add a little bit more depth and dimension to the blooms. I'm using my blender brushes to do this, and I'm adding just a shade of color darker than the cardstock. So on Guava cardstock, I'm shading with fruit punch. On pineapple cardstock, I'm shading with candy corn. And on the avocado cardstock, I'm shading with olive. Once I have all of my shading done, I'm ready to stamp the outline images onto my colorful die cuts. I'm using my negative die cut pieces set up in my MISTI to use as a stamping template. I'll just tape those in there with some removable tape. Note that I am using the foam insert in my MISTI because I am using clear stamps, and that raises everything up to the right level. I'll arrange the clear stamps into the openings on the negative die cut, and when I have them where I want them, and it's very easy to see where they are because they are clear, I'll close the lid of the MISTI to pick up the stamp. I'll set the die cut pieces into the template openings. I'll ink up that stamp with Oreo ink and then close the lid of the MISTI to stamp the image onto the die cut piece. I'll stamp all of the pieces with this particular template, and then I'll repeat the process to stamp all of the different shapes that I have cut out. Now it's time to do the paper piecing to complete the look of the flowers. I'm cutting out the centers on the pineapple flowers, and I'll add those into the middle of the guava flowers. I'm using my paper snips to cut the shapes out. I'm cutting right on the black line, and then I'll use a liquid adhesive to attach it to the other piece. My favorite liquid adhesive is multimedia matte, but you can use whichever liquid adhesive that you like best. I'm adding the green bottoms to the folded flower, and then I'll also add toffee centers to the small yellow daisy. For the background on my cards, I'm using the Gathered Greenery background stamp. I'll set this right up in my MISTI, and I have taken the foam insert out because this is a red rubber stamp. I'll close the lid to pick up that stamp. I'll add a little adhesive to the grid paper in the MISTI to hold my cardstock in place. And then to make sure my cardstock is completely covered by my stamp, I'm actually setting the cardstock right on the stamp and closing the back of the MISTI to transfer the cardstock to the grid paper. I'll ink up the stamp with Sugar Cube ink and close the lid of the MISTI to stamp the background onto the Toffee cardstock. Now it's time to put these cards together. I'm going to show you a few different options of how you can arrange the flowers, but of course you can play around and create your own designs as well. I'm going to use the stems on the card on the left and do more of a portrait orientation of the card, and the card on the right I'm going to do a landscape orientation. I'm going to do more of a arrangement like a spray gray or if it's like a border across the bottom of the card. When I get things where I want them, I will attach everything down onto the background. I will pop the flowers up using foam squares and attach everything else with my tape runner. I'm using a pair of scissors to trim off anything that goes beyond the edge of the card. I added sentiments to each of the cards, and both of them are from the Botanical Sentiments stamp set. I'll set these cards right into my MISTI and arrange the sentiment where I want it on the card. I'll close the lid of the MISTI to pick the stamp up and then make sure it's straight, ink it up with Oreo ink, and then close the lid of the MISTI to stamp the sentiments onto my cards. Finally, I'm attaching each of these panels to a sugar cube card base. I trimmed 1/8 of an inch off one of the ends of the card so that when I attach it to the base, there'll be just a little peak of white cardstock at the bottom of each card. I'll line up the top of each panel with the top of the card base and attach them in place. These cards are done, and I hope you enjoyed my bright, colorful bouquets of flowers that I created with the Picked Posies stamp set and coordinating products. You can find all of the supplies that I used to create these cards in the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time.